Hi, this is Dawn from Ninja Bunny Crochet. Welcome back to my series called Granny Squares. Today we're going to work on the African flower granny square. This is a really pretty flower motif. It looks like it can be very complicated, but once we break it down, you'll see that it's not as complicated as it looks, and you have this really pretty flower motif in the end. These are very versatile squares. You can use them to make toys, you can use them to make bags, blankets, you can even use them to make wearables like sweaters or shawls or anything like that. So let's get into making these beautiful African flower granny squares. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of my tutorials. Before we start making our granny square, let's take a look at it. It's a little bit different than the traditional granny square because our center kind of looks like a star. We have a very tight center, and instead of having a 3 double crochet shell, we have a 2 double crochet shell. And then we have these 2 double crochet shells again around the outside, or the next row. And then we have these larger shells which consist of 7 double crochet shells. And then we're going to be using a single crochet in the next round with this longer stitch, which is called an extended single crochet. Again, this sounds very complicated, but it's very easy, and once you get into doing this, you'll see that it's not difficult. And then our last round around the outside are double crochets. So now that we have our anatomy broke down, let's get into making our African violet granny square. For today's tutorial, we're going to use a 5.5 millimeter hook or an eye hook and worsted weight yarn. Just as before, it doesn't matter what size hook or yarn that you use as long as your hook and your yarn match. To start the African flower granny square, you're going to start with a magic ring. To start a magic ring, place your yarn over your hand like this. You're going to be using these 2 fingers. Secure it with your thumb, wrap it around so that you have an X. Place your hook under the bottom string, catch the top string and pull it through and twist it. Then do a chain stitch to secure the ring. And since we're going to be working in double crochets, we're going to chain 2 more times to get up to the height of a double crochet. So we have a chain 3, which will count as our first double crochet. We're going to double crochet 1 more time to make our first shell. Chain 1 and continue on to our next shell, which will be 2 double crochets. And chain 1 again, and 2 more double crochets. Continue this all the way around until you have 6 double crochet shells. I'll meet you back up at the end of the round. Okay, I'm at the end of round 1. We have 6 double crochet shells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to pull this tail to close up the space in the center so we have no hole in the center of our granny square. We're going to chain 1 and slip stitch to the top of that chain 3. So that little chain is down here, 1, 2, and 3 is up here. and then we're going to fasten off. And here's our center section of our granny square. And here's what it looks like on the granny square, and this is what it will look like. Now we're going to weave in our ends, and I'll come back and we'll start the next color. Okay, now we're going to start round 2, and you're going to attach your yarn in any one of these chain 1 spaces. So insert your hook and attach with a slip stitch. Chain 3, which will count as our first double crochet, and make another double crochet, chain 2, because we're making a corner, another double crochet, and another double crochet. Now this is a little different than our corners on our square granny squares and our hexagon granny squares, and even on any other granny squares that you might have done, because these are 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. But on the African flower granny squares, this is how we're doing the corners. Then we're going to put a chain 1 spacer, and then we're going to place another corner, because this is a 6-sided motif. So 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochets into that chain 1 space, chain 1 for a spacer, and then we're going to the next chain 1 space and repeat 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Please continue this all the way around till you get back to the beginning, and I'll meet back up with you at the end of the round. We're at the end of round 2. We're going to slip stitch into the top of the first chain 3. Chain 1, do not fasten off, slip stitch into the next stitch and into the first chain 2 space. To start round 3, we're going to chain up 3, and we're going to place 6 double crochets into the chain 2 space. Now, because the chain 3 counts as a double crochet, we should have 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is our first petal of our flower. Then we need to create a chain 1 space and go to the next chain 2 space and place 7 double crochets into that space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's our second petal. Chain 1 for our space and repeat into the next chain 2 space, 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and chain 1. Repeat this all the way back around till you get to the last chain 2 space. You'll chain 1 and we'll slip stitch to the top of the first chain 3 and fasten off. I'll meet you back up at the end of the round to show you how to do that. I'm at the end of round 3. We have 6 petals, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of that first chain 3 that we did. And fasten off. And here's what our motif looks like right now, which is what the center part looks like right here. Now we're going to put on this little single crochet round with this little single crochet round here with the extended single crochets or the spike stitches. But first we need to weave in our ends, and I'll be right back and we'll start this round 4. To start round 4, start with a slip knot on your hook, and we're going to fasten on with a single crochet. Start with the first double crochet in the beginning of one of the petals. It doesn't matter which petal you start with. Insert your hook into that first double crochet and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops like you would any other single crochet. Then you can continue single crocheting across each stitch of the petal. So you'll have a total of 7 single crochets across the top of the petal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you're going to come to this space. We have this large gap space. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert your hook in the chain 1 space in the row below. Pull up a loop, and you're going to pull up this long loop and then complete your single crochet. So that makes the extended single crochet, or what can be called a spike stitch. So that helps frame the petal of your flower. Now, this is our chain 3 that we had started around with, so it's a little bit of kind of a funky stitch because this is also where we fastened off, so you just kind of have to stick your hook in anywhere in that stitch to make your single crochet. But you don't want to miss that stitch. Then you can continue on across the top of that petal, making sure that you have 7 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then we come to another chain 1 space. Insert your hook into the chain 1 space, the row below, pull up a long loop, and complete your single crochet. Then you can single crochet across the next petal, and we come to our next spot and we do that again. We do that all the way around. I'll show you one more time. Insert your hook into the chain 1 space, the row below, pull up a long loop, and complete your single crochet. Sometimes you might have to straighten out the loop because it might get a little twisted, but that's okay, just like I did there. So please continue this pattern all the way around, and I will meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, I'm at the end of the round, and we're going to end with that extended single crochet, or that spike stitch, and then slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made and fasten off. There we go. Now, as you can see, it really frames out the petals, those extended single crochets or spike stitches, depending on what you were taught. I was always taught that they were called spike stitches, but I mean, not spike stitches, extended single crochet, but some people do call them spike stitches, so whatever term you would like to use to refer to those stitches. And you can see in our finished example too. So it really accentuates the petals and makes them look really pretty. So once we get the ends weaved in, I'll be back and we'll finish off with our border. Okay, for our last row for the border, we're going to be making these gentle corners at the peaks of each of our petals, and we do that by placing 2 double crochets at the peak. So how I'd like to do that so I can keep track of where the peak is at each flower is I'll start at a extended single crochet or a spike stitch. So I fasten on the top of the extended single crochet and chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, and then double crochet in the next 3 stitches, which brings me to the top of the petal. Then I place 2 double crochets in the next stitch. Then down the other side of the petal, I go and place 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches, and that brings me to the spike stitch or the extended single crochet. So I'll place 1 single crochet in there, and now I'm at the next petal. So again, 3 double crochets or 1 double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches brings us to the peak of the next petal. 2 double crochets into the next stitch to create the peak of the petal. Then 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches going down the other side of the petal. I already got my 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we're at the spike stitch where we place 1 double crochet on top of the spike stitch, and it brings us to the next petal. And I'll show you one more time how we get to the peak. 3 double crochets in the next 3 stitches, so 1 in each stitch, and we're at the peak. Then 2 double crochets at the peak or into the next stitch. Then 3 double crochets or 1 in the next 3 stitches. So you'll be going down the side of the petal. And then the next stitch is the spike stitch or the extended single crochet, and that completes that petal. So please continue with the border all the way around, and I'll meet you back up at the end of the round. I'm at the end of the round, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the first chain 3 that we made, and we can fasten off, and this will complete the motif. So complete the granny square. Now they do curl up a little bit, but you can also block your granny squares to get them to lay flat. I haven't blocked mine yet, but I would block them all at the end when I'm finished making them. I have not done that yet. So if you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And thank you for watching. Happy crocheting!